The Railway Series Number 4, Tank Engine Thomas Again, the Rev. W. Awdry. Thomas and the Guard. Thomas the Tank Engine is very proud of his branch line. He thinks it is the most important part of the whole railway. He has 2 coaches. They are old and need new paint, but he loves them very much. He calls them Annie and Clarabelle. Annie can only take passengers, but Clarabelle can take passengers, luggage, and the guard. As they run backwards and forwards along the line, Thomas sings them little songs, and Annie and Clarabelle sings too. When Thomas starts from the station, he sings, "Oh, come along, we're rather late. Oh, come along, we're rather late." And the coaches sing, "We're coming along, we're coming along." They don't mind what Thomas says to them because they know he is trying to please the Fat Controller. And they know too that if Thomas is cross, he is not cross with them. He is cross with the engines on the main line who have made him late. One day they had to wait for Henry's train. It was late. Thomas was getting crosser and crosser. "How can I run my line properly if Henry is always late? He doesn't realize that the Fat Controller depends on me." And he whistled impatiently. At last Henry came. "Where have you been, lazybones?" asked Thomas crossly. "Oh dear, my system is out of order. No one understands my case. You don't know what I suffer," moaned Henry. "Rubbish," said Thomas. "You're too fat. You need exercise." Lots of people with piles of luggage got out of Henry's train, and they all climbed into Annie's and Clarabelle. Thomas had to wait till they were ready. At last the guard blew his whistle, and Thomas started at once. The guard turned round to jump into his van, tripped over the old lady's umbrella, and fell flat onto his face. By the time he had picked himself up, Thomas and Annie and Clarabelle were steaming out of the station. come along," puffed Thomas, but Clarabelle didn't want to come. I've lost my nice guard, she sobbed. Annie tried to tell Thomas, we haven't a guard, but he was hurrying and wouldn't listen. Oh, come along, he puffed impatiently. Annie and Clarabelle tried to put on their brakes, but they couldn't without the guard. Where is our guard? They cried. Thomas didn't stop till they came to a signal. Bother that signal, said Thomas. What's the matter? I don't know, said his driver. The guard will tell us in a minute. They waited and waited, but the guard didn't come. Peep, 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 peep. Where's the guard? Whistled Thomas. We've left him behind, sobbed Annie and Clarabelle together. The driver and the fireman and the passengers looked, and there was a guard running as fast as he could along the line, with his flags in one hand and a whistle in another. Everybody cheered him. He was very hot, so he sat down and had a drink and told them all about it. I'm very sorry, Mr. Guard, said Thomas. It wasn't your fault, Thomas. It was the old lady umbrella. Look, the signal is down. Let's make up for lost time. Annie and Clarabelle were so pleased to have their guard again that they sang as fast as you like to Thomas all the way, and they reached the end of the line quicker than ever before. Thomas go fishing. Thomas's branch line had a station by a river. As he rumbled over the bridge, he would see people fishing. Sometimes they stood quietly by the lines, sometimes they were actually jerking fish onto the water. Thomas often wanted to stay and watch, but his driver said no. What would the Fat Controller say if we are late? Thomas thought it would be lovely to stop by the river. I should like to go fishing, he said to himself longingly. Every time he met another engine, he would say, I want to fish. They all answered, Engines don't go fishing. Silly, stick in the muds, he would snort impatiently. Thomas generally had to take in water at the station by the river. One day he stopped at the usual, and his fireman put the pipe out from the water tower to his tank. Then he turned the tap, but it was out of order, and no water came. Bother, said Thomas. I am thirsty. Never mind, said the driver. We'll get some water from the river. They found a bucket and some rope and went to the bridge. Then the driver let the bucket down to the water. The bucket was old and had 5 holes, so they had to fill it, pull it up, and empty it into Thomas' tank as quickly as they could. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, sang the fireman. Never mind about Liza, said the driver. You empty that bucket before you spill the water over me. They finished at last. That's good, puffed Thomas as he started, and Annie and Clarabelle ran happily behind. They puffed along the valley and were in the tunnel when Thomas began to feel a pain in a boiler, while steam hissed from his safety valve in an alarming way. There's too much steam, said his driver, and his fireman opened the tap in the feed pipe to let more water into the boiler, but none came. Oh dear, groaned Thomas, I'm going to burst. They damped down his fire and struggled on. I've got such a pain, Thomas hissed. Just outside the last station they stopped, uncoupled Annie and Clarabelle, and ran Thomas, who was still hissing, fit to burst, on the siding right, out of the way. Then while the guard had telephoned for an engine inspector and the fireman was putting out the fire, the driver wrote notices in large letters which hung on Thomas in front and behind. Danger, keep away. Soon the inspector and the fat controller arrived. Cheer up, Thomas, they said. We'll soon put you right. The driver told them what had happened. So the feed pipe is blocked, said Inspector. I'll just look in the tanks. He climbed up and peered in. Then he came down. Excuse me, sir, he said to the fat controller. Please look in the tank and tell me what you see. Certainly, Inspector. He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise. Inspector, he whispered, can you see fish? Gracious goodness me, said the fat controller. How did the fish get in there, driver? Thomas's driver scratched his head. We must have fished them out of the river. And he told them about the bucket. The fat controller laughed. Well, Thomas, so you and your driver have been fishing, but fish don't suit you, and we must get them out. So the driver and the fireman fetched rods and nets, and they all took turns fishing in and out of Thomas's tank, while the fat controller told them how to do it. When they had caught all the fish, the station master gave them some potatoes. The driver borrowed a frying pan, while the fireman made a fire by the line and did the cooking. Then they had a lovely picnic, supper of fish and chips. That was good, said the fat controller as he finished his share. But fish don't suit you, Thomas, so you mustn't do it again. No, sir, I won't, said Thomas sadly. Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable. Thomas, Terence, and the snow. Autumn was changing the leaves from green to brown. The fields were changing too, from yellow stubble to brown earth. As Thomas puffed along, he heard the chug, chug, chug of a tractor at work. One day, stopping for a signal, he saw the tractor close by. Hello, said the tractor. I'm Terence. I'm ploughing. I'm Thomas. I'm pulling a train. What ugly wheels you've got. They're not ugly. They're caterpillars, said Terence. I can go anyway. I don't need rails. I don't want to go anyway, said Thomas huffily. I like my rails, thank you. Thomas often seen Terence working, but though Bertie whilst whistled. Terence never answered. Winter came, and with it dark heavy clouds full of snow. I don't like it, said Thomas, driver. A heavy fall is coming. I hope it doesn't stop us. Pooh, said Thomas, seeing the snow melt on the rails. Soft stuff, nothing to it, and he puffed the feeling cold but confident. They had finished their journey safely, but the country was covered, and the rails were two dark lines standing out in white snow. You'll need your snowplough for the next journey, Thomas, said his driver. Pooh, snow is silly soft stuff. It won't stop me. Listen to me, his driver replied. We are going to fix the snowplough on, and I want no nonsense, please. The snowplough was heavy and uncomfortable, and made Thomas cross. He shook it, and then he had banged it, and when they got back it was so damaged that the driver had to take it off. You're a very naughty engine, said his driver, as he shut the shed door that night. Next morning, both driver and fireman came early and worked hard to mend the snowplough, but they couldn't make it fit properly. It was time for the first train. Thomas was pleased. I shan't have to wear it. I shan't have to wear it, he puffed to Annie and Clarabel. I hope it's all right. I hope it's all right, they whispered anxiously to each other. The driver was anxious too. It's not bad here, he said to the fireman, but it's sure to be deep in the valley. It was snowing again when Thomas started, but the rails were not covered. Silly soft stuff, he puffed. I don't need that stupid old thing yesterday. I shan't today. Snow can't stop me. And he rushed into the tunnel, thinking how clever he was. At the other end, he saw a heap of snow falling from the sides of the cutting. Silly old snow, said Thomas, and charged it. Cinders and ashes, said Thomas. I'm stuck. And he was. Back, Thomas, back, said the driver. Thomas tried, but his wheels spun, and he couldn't move. More snow fell and piled up around him. The guard went back for help, while the driver, fireman, and passengers tried to dig the snow away. But as fast as they dug, more snow slipped down until Thomas was nearly buried. Oh, my wheels and coupling rods, said Thomas sadly. I shall have to stop here. I'm frozen. What a silly engine I am, said Thomas, and began to cry. At last, a tooting in the distance told them a bus had come for the passengers. Then Terence chugged through the tunnel. He pulled the empty coaches away and came back for Thomas. Thomas's wheels were clear, but still spun helplessly when he tried to move. Terence tugged and slipped and tugged, and at last dragged Thomas into the tunnel. Thank you, Terence. Your caterpillars are splendid, said Thomas gratefully. I hope you're sensible now, Thomas, said his driver severely. I'll try, said Thomas as he puffed home. Thomas and Bertie. One day, Thomas was waiting at the junction when a bus came into the yard. Hello, said Thomas. Who are you? I'm Bertie. Who are you? I'm Thomas. I run this line. So you're Thomas. I remember now. You stuck in the snow. I took your passengers, and Terence pulled you out. I've come to help you with your passengers today. Help me, said Thomas crossly, going bluer than ever and letting off steam. I can go faster than you. You can't. I can. I'll race you, said Bertie. Their drivers agreed. The station master said, Are you ready? Go! And they were off. Thomas never could go at fast at first, and Bertie drew in front. Thomas was running well, but he did not hurry. Why don't you go fast? Why don't you go fast? Called Annie and Clarabel anxiously. Wait and see. Wait and see, hissed Thomas. He's a long way ahead, they wailed. But Thomas didn't mind. He remembered the level crossing. There was Bertie fuming at the gates while they sailed gaily through. Goodbye, Bertie, called Thomas. The road left the railway and went through a village, so they couldn't see Bertie. They stopped at the station. Peep, pip, peep. Quickly, please, called Thomas. Everybody got out quickly, and the guard whistled, and off they went. Come along, sang Thomas. We're coming along, sang Hanny and Clarabel. Hurry, 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 panted Thomas, looking straight ahead. Then he whistled shrilly in horror, for Bertie was crossing the bridge over the railway, tooting triumphantly on his horn. Oh, dearie me, groaned Thomas. He's a long way in front, wailed Annie Clarabel. Steady, Thomas, said his driver. We'll beat Bertie yet, echoed Annie and Clarabel. We'll do it, panted Thomas bravely. Oh, bother, there's a station. As he stopped, he heard a toot. Goodbye, Thomas, you must be tired. Sorry, I can't stop. We buses have to work, you know. Goodbye. The next station was by the river. They got there quickly, but the signal was up. Oh dear, thought Thomas, we've lost. But he felt better after a drink. Then James rattled through the goods train, and the signal dropped, showing the line was clear. Hurrah, we're off! Hurrah, we're off! Puffed Thomas gaily. As they then rumbled over the bridge, they heard an impatient toot, toot, and there was Bertie waiting at the red light, while cars and lorries crashed the narrow bridge in the opposite direction. Road and railway ran up the valley side by side, a stream tumbling between. Thomas had not crossed the bridge when Bertie started with a roar, and soon shot ahead excitedly. Passengers in a train and bus cheered and shouted across the valley. Now Thomas reached his full speed, and foot by foot, yard by yard, he gained till they were running level. Bertie then tried hard, but Thomas was too fast. Slowly but surely he drew ahead, till whistling triumphantly he plunged into a tunnel, leaving Bertie toiling far behind. I've done it, panted Thomas in the tunnel. We've done it, hooray! We've done it, hooray! Chanted Annie and Clarabel, and whistling proudly, they whooshed out of the tunnel into the last station. The passengers gave Thomas 3 cheers and told the station master and the porters all about the race. When Bertie came in, they gave him 3 cheers too. Well done, Thomas, said Bertie. That was fun, but to beat you over the hill, I should have to grow wings and be an aeroplane. Thomas and Bertie now keep each other busy. Bertie finds people in the villages who wants to go by train and take them to Thomas, while Thomas brings people to the station for Bertie to take home. They often talk about their race, but Bertie's passengers don't like being bounced like peas in a frying pan, and the Fat Controller has warned Thomas about what happens to engines who race at dangerous speeds. So although between you and me they would like to have another race, I don't think they